Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of Vengeful Vegas, True Crime in Sin City. I'm your host, Bonnie.
And I'm Janice.
And before I get into today's episode, Janice is going to tell you about an active missing persons case.
Before I get into today's missing person, I just want to let you know that I got some feedback on our episode on the Circus heist. And the feedback I got was that, Bonnie, you need to stop it with the music references, because you literally said the guy's name in Axl Rose. And then you said, I think Def Leppard, they said, is who you quoted. And they said that, Bonnie, the name of the band is literally in the guy's name that you said. It is Guns N' Roses.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel like an absolute moron. Guns and Roses. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and keep my mouth shut unless I have like solid evidence to back up my claims.
So this week's missing person is Case Wade McBride, and he was last seen December 2nd, 2021. He was born on December 6th, 1993, and is currently 28 years old. He has blonde hair, and he sometimes dyes it brown, and he has blue eyes. His distinguishing features are that he has gauged ears and may or may not have facial hair. He also has a lot of tattoos, and some of them are a shrunken head with its eyes and mouth sewn shut on his left forearm, and a family tree on his left hand. The words "No Fear, No Faith" on his right chest, and a dagger in front of his right ear. Case is from eastern Idaho, but after his friends drug him down to Las Vegas, his girlfriend robbed him and left him homeless. His family says he does not have a phone or car, and his last known whereabouts were by Fremont Street. Nobody has seen or heard from him in over a month, and missing persons reports have been filed in both Las Vegas and Idaho. If you know anything or have any information regarding his whereabouts, please contact the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department at 702-828-3206.
Today's episode is about George William Coulthard, or Bill as he was commonly called. Bill was born and raised in Iowa in 1916. I couldn't find any information about his childhood or teenage years other than that he loved Iowa and the country life. By 1936, at the age of 20, he was admitted to the Iowa bar, and then he joined the FBI in 1939 at the age of 23, which is how I think he was introduced to Las Vegas.
He joined the FBI?
Yeah, isn't that amazing? He was 23 years old and he joined the FBI.
How does the FBI introduce him to Las Vegas?
Well, he was the first FBI resident agent in Las Vegas in 1940.
Oh.
This was before the mob defined what was then a small desert town. You and I talked during the Bugsy Siegel episode about how the mob was a big part of Las Vegas life in the early 1900s. In 1945, at the age of 29, Bill decided to practice law and retire from the FBI. He became a lawyer in 1946 at the age of 30, and he practiced law up until the time of his death.
What kind of law?
The only information I could find about his law practice was that he owned a private practice, but it doesn't say specifically what kind of cases he took.
Okay.
During this time, Bill became a Nevada assemblyman from 1951 until 1954. So that means he served 2 terms.
What does an assemblyman do?
The Nevada State Assembly is the lower chamber of the Nevada State Legislature. Alongside the Nevada State Senate, it forms the legislative branch of the Nevada State government and works alongside the governor to create laws, establish a budget, and They pass bills on public policy matters. They set levels for state spending, for raising and lowering taxes, and they vote to uphold or override gubernatorial vetoes.
That's an interesting word.
He was also, during this time, the Speaker pro tempore in 1953. The Speaker of the House, in case you were wondering, is the primary leader of the lower house of the state legislature. The Speaker serves as the chief spokesman for the chamber, presides over legislative sessions, directs the legislative process, and performs additional administrative and procedural duties. So, Speaker pro tempore means he's the temporary speaker. He's just filling in for a short amount of time.
Okay.
He was also the president of the Nevada State Bar Association. The State Bar of Nevada is a public corporation that operates under the supervision of the Nevada Supreme Court. The State Bar regulates attorneys in Nevada and provides education and development programs for the legal profession and the public. So Bill had his hands elbow deep in public relations.
He was a people person.
He was a people person, very, very much so. Because of Bill's upstanding personality, commitment to following the law, and drive to earn success the honest way, he very quickly became a well-respected member of the business and legal community. Bill ended up marrying Lena Silvani, daughter of P.O. Silvani, sometime around 1940. In case you don't know who P.O. Silvani is, I will give you just a little bit of information.
Yeah, I have no idea.
P.O. Silvani was the pioneer of the Las Vegas hotel industry. Initially, he went to Las Vegas as a cement contractor, entrepreneur in the production of cement for the upcoming construction of the Hoover Dam. And he wanted to offer a place that was beautiful to the eye.
What year did the dam start being built? I want to say it was in the 20s, maybe early 30s.
Construction on the Hoover Dam began in 1931, and it took them 5 years to build it. So they finished in March of 1936.
Do you remember those stories growing up about how there are bodies like buried in the concrete of the Hoover Dam?
Yeah, and I think there really are.
I feel like someone would have noticed that, like, Jim Bob was missing one day.
Oh.
I mean, I've gone on the Hoover Dam tour, or I did back when I was growing up, and I remember that they were very adamant that no one was actually buried there.
Right. From sources that I found, they claim that nobody is actually buried in the Hoover Dam, but there were over 100 deaths during the construction of the Hoover Dam.
I think that the only thing that actually died at the construction site was either a dog or a cat that was like the construction crew animal actually died during the construction at the site. I don't think anyone else actually died there, if I remember correctly.
I've never taken the tour, so I can't say for sure. But maybe at some point we will cover that.
I don't know. All I'm imagining right now is the tour where they take the tour in Vegas Vacation and he touches the wall and it starts to leak and then the gum.
Oh my, yes! Oh my gosh! I totally remember that. So, P.O. Silvani wanted to provide a comfortable and classy place for the Hoover Dam construction workers to go to during the time that they were working. So, in 1929 and 1931, P.O. Silvani began buying lots of land in Las Vegas, and around this time, prohibition had just been abolished and gambling had become legal. There were around 6,000 people that lived in Las Vegas around that time, but it very quickly became a major attraction for people traveling between Salt Lake City and Los Angeles. And this was largely in part because of P.O. Silvani's hotel that he opened up.
You know how Vegas became a city, right?
No.
Vegas was a train depot between those two cities you mentioned, but because of the depot, to get people to stop and want to stay, that's when the casinos came in.
I see. Okay, so he bought originally the Apache Hotel.
He bought it or he built it?
He bought it. I don't know who originally owned it, but he ended up buying it. And he basically upgraded it. He added an electric elevator, he added air conditioning, and he added a private restroom in the lobby area, if I remember correctly. So, because of these updates and new amenities, the Apache Hotel became a major hotspot in downtown Las Vegas. The property, to this day, is still operating as Binion's Gambling Hall and Hotel Apache in downtown Las Vegas.
Oh, I was going to say, I recognize that name, but I didn't know, I couldn't place where it was down there, but I definitely know Binion's.
Yeah. So that's the family that Bill married into. So they got married in 1940, and shortly after, they adopted a young girl named Karen. Lena had health issues, specifically with her heart, and so she went to Los Angeles to get heart surgery in 1955, July of 1955, and she actually ended up dying during surgery. She was only 42 years old, and their daughter Karen was only 5.
Oh.
Yeah, super sad. So after Lena's death, Bill inherited Lena's interest in the Silvani family real estate holdings, specifically the holdings in local casinos. As the years went by, Bill ended up acquiring even more of the shares by buying the shares that his in-laws had, Michael and Victor Silvani. This ended up making him the largest shareholder of the Silvani family holdings.
So he married into the family and now he owns the most shares.
Right. And Lena, her last will, bequeathed 1/2 of her stock in Silvani Estate, which owned the Horseshoe Building and land, to Bill, and the other half to Bill in trust for their daughter Karen. After her death, the stockholders of that company were Michael Silvani, Victor Silvani, Olga Silvani, William Coulthard, or Bill, and William Coulthard as trustee for Karen. In 1961, those stockholders entered into an agreement to dissolve the corporation and distribute the Horseshoe properties to themselves as tenants in common.
So Bill has like twice the voting power.
Yeah, he had major control of the property. So later on, Bill got remarried to a woman named Diane Crandall, and they had 3 children together, Leslie, William, and James. Every August, until Bill's death, the family would spend the month in a beach house in Del Mar, California, along with some friends and neighbors. So the men would work during the week, Monday through Friday, in Las Vegas, and then they would make the 5-hour drive to Del Mar for the weekends. I personally love Del Mar Beach. It's the beach that I spent the most time at when I lived in Las Vegas during my teenage years and my early 20s. I would go there with my younger sister, and we would just drive to the beach and hang out. Sometimes we would go with a church group and make the drive and spend the day there at the beach, and then we would drive home that night, or we would stay at someone's beach house. It was so much fun. I love Del Mar Beach.
You would drive out there for just one day?
Yeah. My sister Clara and I would drive down there. We would just get up one morning and we'd look at each other and say, I want to go to the beach today. So we would pack up some stuff, hop in the car, and drive to the beach. It was so much fun. Those are some of my most favorite memories. So Bill was a friend and associate of Ernest Becker III of Becker Enterprises. As just a historical lesson, Becker bought the original 250 acres that is now Charleston Heights in West Las Vegas. Becker liked to name streets after his friends and people that he knew. Bill Coulthard was one of them. Bill Coulthard Street is near Rainbow and Charleston Boulevard, in fact.
Did you ever grow up wanting to name a street after yourself?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of my favorite streets was Bonneville, and I often wanted to steal that sign. But there is one street named Bonnie Street. And I would drive past it every time I went to the temple. And I wanted to take that sign so bad. But I was too afraid of getting caught, so I never did.
I don't think I've ever actually seen a Janice Street. But growing up, I always said that when I build my own house and it's down like a private street and I get to name the street, it's going to be Janice Way. Because obviously it's always my way.
Oh, Janice Way or the highway?
Exactly.
So, on July 25th of 1972 at 3:40 p.m., Bill left work at his law office in the Bank of Nevada building, and he walked through the sweltering 115-degree heat on the third floor of the parking garage and got into his nice, shiny Cadillac. He turned the key in his ignition, and the engine exploded. There was a clothespin trigger holding 4 sticks of dynamite, and when he turned the key, the clothespin moved, triggered the dynamite, and decimated his vehicle. The explosion caused the surrounding vehicles to ignite.
Who did he piss off?
That's the million-dollar question. Bill's Cadillac caused a massive explosion that blasted a hole in the 16-inch concrete floor of the parking garage. The hole wasn't big enough for his Cadillac to fall through it, but it still caused a hole. And it ended up shattering the light fixtures in the bank lobby down on the first floor.
Whoever he pissed off, that's a little overkill.
It got the job done.
Well, I would hope so, with that much explosive.
Yeah, this one explosion caused the 5 surrounding vehicles to explode, and this caused shockwaves through the downtown area repeatedly. And then 20 other cars were damaged in the blasts. People in downtown Las Vegas just stood and watched as black smoke and flames billowed from the parking garage. And some of the people that worked there talked about the scorching heat, not only from the day, but from the flames on top of that. Bill's body was torn apart during the explosion and charred completely beyond recognition. His dental records were necessary to ID his body. Later that week, his funeral was held on Friday at 10 a.m. at the Palm Mortuary, and he was later buried at the Palm Mausoleum. In fact, you can go down to the Palm Mausoleum and find his plaque.
Where is the Palm?
The Palm Downtown Mortuary and Cemetery is on Main Street in Las Vegas.
But it must be small, because Main Street is not that long. At least I don't believe it is.
After Bill's death, his family continued to contribute to the community. They requested that donations be made to the Clark County Law Library or to the UNLV Library instead of flowers. His family thought for sure that the investigation was going to run its course and people were going to be convicted and tried, but no one has ever been caught and tried for Bill's murder.
So do we have another unsolved?
We do. So in order to find out who killed Bill, the Chamber of Commerce was able to raise $75,000 in reward money.
$75,000 in what year?
1972. The local Chamber of Commerce gathered $75,000 within days of Bill's death as a reward for information leading to the capture of whoever was responsible for Bill's death.
Okay, so I just did the conversion, and $75,000 in 1972 is equivalent to about $500,000 today.
Oh my gosh.
So $500,000 reward.
And nobody stepped forward to claim it. Beecher's Avance was the homicide detective working Bill's case, and he tracked down lead after lead within months. And he actually determined that the most likely suspect had been Tom Hanley, and the motive was Benny Binion's desire to get rid of Bill so he could have control of the Binion Casino. So Avance didn't have enough evidence, like enough concrete evidence to make an arrest. But whenever he saw Tom Hanley around town, he would yell, "I'm going to put you away for Coulthard." So he had a very, very strong suspicion that Tom Hanley was the one that killed Bill Coulthard. So Avance was the lead detective on this case. And he talks about how there were a lot of things to run down, a lot of leads to check out, and they all led nowhere, or as he says, they just petered out. Some had no endings and others were just lies. I assume because people wanted the reward money. They were hoping they had solid enough information that would get them that reward money. And he talks about how aggravating and disconcerting it was that they just couldn't find out who did this. I mean, it was broad daylight and the guy got away with it. He said that he used to talk to himself trying to run down all of the leads, and his wife at the time said that he used to talk to himself all the time when he was in the backyard doing yard work. Eventually, Avance retired from the police force and went to work as a district attorney as an investigator, and then later went on to work as a casino security consultant. And he said, "I'll always wonder what I might have missed that would have put the final cap on it. This is the one that really sticks out in my mind the most." So back in 2000, Lieutenant Wayne Peterson of Metro's homicide unit said someone came forward with information on the case that looked promising. He said, quote, "We have new information on people who have already been identified as those who may have been involved in Coulthard's death," Peterson said. "Because the leads have led them out of the state and because the FBI's interest in the case," Peterson said investigators are working closely with federal agents to track down the new leads. He declined to comment on the identity of their informant, but said the information seems reliable. Quote, "We are certainly looking at this as being a last-ditch effort to bring a resolution to this case. Obviously, the people involved with the case are getting older. If we want to bring them to justice, we don't have forever to do it," end quote. And then he goes on to say, quote, "Without this new information coming forward, this case would probably have sat on a shelf and remained unsolved, and it may still be unsolved. But the information certainly gave us a starting point to re-examine the case. We're certainly making the effort to get it resolved," end quote.
Has it been a cold case? Has it been open this whole time?
I believe it's been a cold case this whole time. They haven't had anything to go off of. They haven't been able to follow any leads, so it's just been sitting in a box as a cold case. I tried to find out what the new lead was because this was 22 years ago. And so far as I can tell, from what I've been able to find, this case has still gone unsolved. So I'm assuming that whatever that tip was, whatever that new lead was, it went nowhere because there's been no arrest and conviction for his murder.
I mean, maybe it did go somewhere, but because it's 30 years out from the murder, people are not around to corroborate what was told to them. So, there's a lack of evidence to prove it. I mean, they might believe the story and they're just trying to get the substantial evidence to be able to actually take it to court.
I have no way of knowing at this point. So another thing that Lieutenant Peterson talks about is how usually it's to our benefit when more than one person is involved in a homicide. Because it's human nature for people to talk, thank God. People will always eventually talk, and now maybe that's working in our favor. So, again, I don't know if this went anywhere.
You said people always talk, so that just makes me think, if I was to ever commit a crime, do you think I'd be able to shut up long enough to, not tell anyone and live my life? Do you think I'd get away with it, or do you think I would blab?
Well, there's that saying that goes, you think you know people, but you don't really ever know. And I honestly don't know. My initial instinct is no, dude, you talk about it. But I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know either. I definitely am an oversharer.
Yeah.
But if it was to come to living free or living in jail, that would be a completely different situation that I've never been in, so I don't know if I would be tempted to blab or not.
I'm the same way. Not to set myself up for future problems here, but I think I would be the type of person where I would not be able to keep it to myself unless there's the possibility I'd be able to keep it under wraps if I felt like I was doing the world a favor by, like, doing what I did.
Like if Bugsy Siegel would have murdered those Nazis.
Yeah. You know, or like taking care of a pedophile or a serial killer or...
Did you know that Las Vegas actually has serial killers in its history?
I didn't know that. That's something I should know because I'm a serial killer junkie.
I didn't know that.
Huh.
I mean, not all of the crimes of the serial killers were in Vegas, but some of the notorious serial killers did commit some of their murders in Vegas. So when I was making the list of all these crimes, I found that there were serial killers, and I actually had to look into it because I wanted to know. And yeah, that's just, until we do a case on them or an episode on them, we're not going to know how many of their murders were in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Las Vegas is a prime hunting ground for serial killers, honestly. That doesn't surprise me at all. It makes me feel kind of icky thinking about it, but it's not surprising.
The one thing I can say as a benefit to Las Vegas is if someone murders someone there and they want to bury a body, they ain't burying it in the ground there.
Oh, yeah. Typically bodies get dumped. Either in Lake Mead, I personally believe, or just out in the desert. There's plenty of desert for people to dump a body.
Yeah. The ground there is just so hard. Like, you can't just go out. I mean, you can, but it's going to be a lot more difficult than if you were to dig a hole up here in Washington State.
Yeah. What's that rock called, Caliche, in Las Vegas that you just cannot get through?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I think it's called Caliche. It's like bedrock. It's the worst.
Yeah, anytime my dad wanted to, like, plant trees or something, and trees and any sort of planting in Las Vegas, like, they don't always take because of the ground.
Yeah.
And so, like, anytime my dad would have trees that he wanted planted in our yard, he would just go down to the local Star Nursery and just pick up some workers, and they would dig the hole for him, and they'd have it done in, like, no time at all.
Oh, yeah.
And then when the tree that they planted died, my dad would do it again.
Yeah. So, I found it. Caliche, a mineral deposit of gravel, sand, and nitrates found especially in dry areas of South America and Nevada. It's also described as an area of calcium carbonate formed in the soils of semi-arid regions.
I don't think Las Vegas is in a semi-arid region. I'm pretty sure it's just arid.
Yeah. Oh, yes. There's never any freaking humidity in that place.
Except for when you get the flash floods.
Yeah. I love those. I absolutely love the storms there.
Yeah, so I told people, so I live up where it rains all the time, and I told people, like, what people in Las Vegas or the desert of Southern California and Nevada do when it rains. And they thought I was lying, because I told them, like, yeah, when it rains there, people will open their garage doors and they will pull their chairs out and they will just sit in the garage and watch it rain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And people up here find that, like, crazy. Like, they seriously thought I was, like, lying to them.
Well, it's just so commonplace up where you are. You know, it's freaking Washington. But in Las Vegas, we get these gorgeous thunderstorms. Oh my gosh. I absolutely love the thunderstorms in Las Vegas. They're beautiful.
And just the smell of fresh rain there.
Yeah. The creosote. Oh my gosh. I love it.
So, Bonnie, you are confirming that it is normal in Las Vegas to sit in your garage and watch it rain.
Oh yeah. In your garage or on your patio. You just go sit out and watch. Or what my husband used to do is he would take the kids and they would go out in the absolute downpour and run around in the rain and just play in the rain because we didn't ever get it. And it's so warm outside during the downpours. It's just Oh my gosh, it's the best rain in the United States that I've experienced.
I would agree with that.
So, that's all we know about the murder of George William Coulthard. They don't have the case closed, it's still open, and if they're going to bring anybody to justice, they have a very, very short amount of time to do it.
Thanks for joining us.
And remember, safety isn't expensive, it's priceless.